We have actually introduced a reservation for women.
Wow.
20% has to be women in undergraduate. I think there's a very wrong notion of reservation. The reservation brings in weaker people. Nonsense.
Correct.
It took me 8 years to get a telephone.
8
There
years?
was a waiting list of 8 years. Please, when you next time point out a farmer is getting a subsidy, never forget that your forefathers have got subsidy for telephones. Today there is nothing in the West or in US which you don't get here.
Correct. In Guvi, we have more women than men. So here, the women ratio is more than what men are. Okay, so that is by design or by default it happened. Somewhere it has happened. So one of the questions which I had is like, how much? I mean, we have come to your home and we have had food at home. So I want to know about how much your wife has impacted your perspective in terms of shaping your personality, and what women have come. I mean, take part in shaping up yourself in the world.
Well, when I began at IIT, there were very few women. In fact, I was a student at IIT Kanpur. We had 418 or 19 students, out of which 2 were women. Undergraduate, that was a big problem. In fact, in IIT in undergraduate, we found this a problem. This was much less than in M.Tech. In Gindri Engineering College, that was not so. I found 30% women straight away there. Again, this highly competitive exam focused on where you have to go to either quota or in those college,
The
in
training
those
centers.
training centers, was somehow not letting women flower up.
Correct.
In terms of work, when we actually employed people, we are always found that women doing as well, sometimes better. So within IIT, I don't know how many of you know, with all kinds of objections, we have actually introduced a reservation for women.
Wow.
20% has to be women in undergraduate. I think there's a very wrong notion of reservation. The reservation brings in weaker people. Nonsense.
Correct.
Actually, if you find, even with reservation, the last man selected, last boy selected, and last girl selected. What is the difference between the two marks? 1.5%. 1.5%. Now, what is this 1.5%? Frankly speaking, no exam really can correctly point out where you are. I think within 4 or 5%, yes, exam can place you correctly. But mostly women were getting knocked out in that intense competition by this decimal places. We just opened it up. And today, undergraduate already has 20, going up. Postgraduates already have about 35-40. In our project staff, 35-40%. We have never found that women perform less than the men. In fact, when we did this summer thing, we said we'll prefer if it is equal number of men and women. In my own experience, women are definitely more responsible. True. Rest depend on environment. Now the question, has my wife played a role? Well, she has always encouraged women students of mine. Just like you people have come home, many people come. She has always been there. In fact, one of the role that she played is that very often when boys and girls work in my lab and they somehow start liking each other and they are from different caste and communities and religion,
Okay.
they will come to my wife.
Oh, okay.
And as long as the two are committed, we have always said, go ahead.
Okay.
Not everyone liked it. There was opposition. But then, life just moves on. Yes, for me personally, I think whatever I have been able to get done, my wife has played a major role. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. Professor, again, going back to a flashback nostalgic thing. So everybody know Christopher Nolan's Tenant, okay, that movie. So that name is very famous now. So, but you started a Tenant group long back. Can you tell a little bit more about why it started? What is the vision? How it is started?
Well, it's actually a little funny looking back. I wanted a telephone at my home, 1981. Why? Because my parents were in Calcutta. I wanted to stay in touch with them. What you may not believe, most of these youngsters won't understand. It took me 8 years to get a telephone.
They can't even wait.
There was a waiting list of 8 years. And literally, 1981 I applied, 1988 end. Okay, it was not 8 years, it was 7.5 years. Should have got it in 8 years, but I got a little early because I knew someone. I managed to get it 6 months earlier. I started digging into it, and it was very painful. Why? In US, you could get it immediately. In fact, I had rented an apartment before, and I also called for setting up a telephone line. By the time I reached there, telephone line was also there. And when we started digging into it, we found the reason there is such a large waiting list, because government was investing to install a telephone line. And a return on the investment on telephone line was so small that it did not make any economic sense. I don't know whether you understood what I just said. Let me elaborate. It used to cost 40,000 rupees to install a telephone line. At that time, one line, there was a complete telephone line end to end. Average cost will be 40,000 rupees. We are connected to Adyar Exchange. A pair of wire will come to my home. All digging, copper wire, exchange there, the long distance network, everything together amounted to 40,000 rupees per line. Now, to recover 40,000, suppose a business had put it, they have to account for three things. And this is something that everyone should learn. First, for that investment, there will be an interest. So suppose you borrowed that 40,000 rupees from bank, that time the interest rate was 15%. 15% every year you have to pay back the bank. The second, whatever you have invested has to be recovered.
Correct.
That's called depreciation.
Yeah.
Or in other words, if you have borrowed 40,000 rupees, you have to pay back 40,000. Interest you are taking, depreciation. And one can possibly pay it for 8 years because a telephone line will last for 8 years. So you needed another 12% or so depreciation. Then there was operation and maintenance cost. Another 10%. So on nearly close to 35% or 15,000 rupees per year. If my telephone bill was 15,000 rupees per year or 1,200 rupees per month, the government's investment will break even. Or
Will
anybody's
break
investment
even.
will break even. Now, 1,200 rupees per month at that time, 1983-84, was my total salary. I would be able to spend 100 rupees per month, maybe, with difficulty. Of course, salaries went up. It became 3,000-4,000 rupees. Even then, I'll be able to spend 250 rupees per month.
Correct.
At 40,000 rupees per month, 250 rupees per 40,000 rupees investment, 250 rupees per month does not make economic sense. So it was like a subsidy given to all the telephone users. Just like we keep talking about farmer subsidy, every one of us got telephone. If your parents got telephone at their home, it was a subsidy that was given. And subsidy has a waiting list, so we had a waiting list of 8 years.
Okay.
So what did we do? Since we were in the area of telecom, we said we need to change that. And we said since incomes are not going to rise very rapidly, and I have to make it work at 250 rupees per month, 3,000 rupees per year. So if I can bring down the cost of telephone by 10,000 rupees per line somehow.
From 40 to 10,000.
40 to 10. Then it will make a business case. Then there will be enough investment. Government does not have to invest. No subsidy required. And everybody can get telephone. How do you bring it down to 10,000 rupees per year? And that is what we tried to do. The Tenant group tried to do. The Tenant groups hired a lot of youngsters from a different engineering college, and a few of us faculty say we will make it 10,000 rupees per line. Now what do? There are three parts of a telecom network. There are one or two more parts, but three major. One is called backbone network, the long distance telephone lines. That used to be very expensive. That used to cost 7,000 rupees per line, 8,000 rupees per line.
Copper or OFC?
All kinds.
All kinds.
I was working on optical fiber.
Okay.
And as we brought in optical fiber and put thousands of calls on a single optical fiber, the cost kept on coming down.
Wow.
So by late 80s, even our work and work of others, we knew that cost of 8,000, 7,000 rupees per line was coming down to 500 rupees per line going forward.
Wow.
That work was going on all over the world. India was one place, but was not dependent on us. I was working on it. Yes,
Okay.
I was also contributing. So that will go down. The second was the exchange cost. Telephone exchange. In 1981, that exchange used to cost 10,000 rupees per line. I remember the exchange was bought in Adyar, 10,000 rupees per line.
Per line.
Per line. Now, one gentleman called Sam Petroda, again you would have heard the name. In the 80s, he came
Telecom
from US,
Revolution.
became telecom secretary with Rajiv Gandhi, and he worked on electronic exchange and brought down that cost significantly. And going forward, we knew that cost will be only 1,000 rupees per line. So two parts of the network cost was already coming down. There was a third part of the network, a copper wire which was from Adyar, a pair of wire used to come to my home. There it was a cost of copper, cost of digging. Now, cost of digging was not going to come down. It was going up year after year.
Yeah. Labor cost is always.
Labor cost of repair of roads. Cost of copper was going up year after year. It was already 25,000 rupees and we didn't see how it will go down. So me and my colleague, Dr. Bhaskar Ramurthy and Timothy Gonzalez one day said, let us make it wireless telephony.
Okay.
That's the only way, because copper will not go down. Wireless, I'll require electronics here and electronics there. Maybe we can do something. That time, the cost of wireless lines like this used to be 1 lakh rupees per line. So everybody says it's foolish. What are they doing? And we wanted to bring it to 7,000 rupees per line so that total cost doesn't become more than 10,000 rupees. We said that is our challenge. Can we bring down the wireless cost to 7,000 rupees? We knew that we are going to do a lot of signal processing for that, and signal processing can actually be done by a same hardware with a lot of software. So software cost we knew can come down. Once done, it will be
Yeah.
used again and again. And we have a very large country, large market. That cost will be very low.
Software treated as capex.
And we'll design the integrated circuits also in such a manner. And the integrated circuit cost also, we knew rights on Moore's law, every 18 months it becomes half. So in 3 years it will become 1/4, in 6 years it will become 1/16. So we said, if we can design a good wireless telephone, all the way from Adyar exchange to every home, that cost can come down to 7,000-8,000 rupees per line. And we decided to develop wireless in local loop. We had about 50 youngsters from different colleges. They are the one who have become rancho, become tech wizard. We really made them work hard. And we actually built one. We created a company called Madras. And we actually installed in Adyar, Besantnagar area. In fact, that Eden restaurant, which serves food many times in many of the conferences here, was one of the first places we had given that wireless telephone.
Okay.
There were 2 women who had set up that restaurant. And when we went there, liked the food, we asked them that food is very good. What do you want? Say, sir, we don't have a telephone. Can we get a telephone? And we had just designing that phone. We said, well, wait a minute. As soon as our trials begin, we'll give you a trial telephone. That's how the Eden got phone. That's how our wireless local loop, we put about 300 lines in this whole area. We proved it. Cost came down. And then others also did a lot of wireless telephony. It also became more and more mobile. First wireless we had done was a fixed wireless. Later on became mobile. And by 2001, when mobiles really started moving on, the cost did come under 10,000 rupees per line. And India got 100 million telephone and waiting list was wiped out. Since then, the cost has further come down. Today, the fixed infrastructure cost from 10,000 rupees has come to 2,000 rupees per line.
Wow.
Plus the cost of mobile phone, which is anywhere from 2,000 rupees to 50,000 rupees. That individual buys, depending on what they can afford. And from 8 million telephones that we had in 1994, we grew to 100 million telephone in 2001 when the cost came down. To 10,000 rupees. We grew to 400 million telephones by 2005 when the cost came down to 4,000 rupees per line. And today with 2,000 rupees per line, we have made 1.4 billion phones.
Economies of
This
scale.
can be done for every technology. If you do not understand the economics of a technology, it cannot be scaled. Please, when you next time point out a farmer is getting a subsidy, never forget that your forefathers have got subsidy for telephones. All your education was highly subsidized. School and college, IITs are highly subsidized. All the government colleges are highly subsidized. Yes, private colleges are not subsidized.
So one of the things you mentioned, R&D at commercial scale was one of your mantras to start with. But in my view, at least, most of the colleges doesn't have the thought process of R&D. Forget about the top colleges. So how do you expect R&D to come in and scale us to then the next part?
I don't think this will happen in colleges. I think people coming out of those colleges has to be put into the right environment. And this is what we did in the summer. In those build clubs, they build.
Okay.
When they came into places like this, they build and they learn. Build is a first step of more complex R&D. You build for example, yesterday we were having a discussion, more or less making a program. Can we make micro-nuclear power stations?
Okay. Oh.
See, remember, all of us today are gaga about ISRO, obviously. We have done great. But I don't know how many of you know that we have a company called Agnikul here in this research park. It is making rockets. If you have not visited, visit sometime.
Sure.
When they are here sometime, let Rima take them around.
Sure. We'll have a
And
podcast with them as
tomorrow, We are saying we'll make nuclear power plants like a diesel generator. Why? Because diesel is fossil fuel, which is highly polluting, harms the climate. Nuclear, on the other hand, does not do that. So, we can take more and more challenging technology and get that done. And we plan to do that.
Okay. So going in the same line, now every country are talking about carbon emissions and carbon neutrality and other things. But long back you have envisioned research park, the entire building to be run on DC, which is a renewable thing. Okay. So can you elaborate more on that?
So we have gone beyond that.
Yeah.
Today we are saying that in next couple of years' time we should be 90% of our whole complex should run on a renewable energy. We have put solar rooftop, but that's not enough. We have actually built solar and wind plants outside in Tamil Nadu, somewhere 100, 200 kilometers away, wherever land was available. And we are bringing in that power out here. We are what is called wheeling in the power. The only difficulty is, whenever sun shines, there will be power. Whenever wind is blowing, there will be power. And when sun is in the evening, there will be no power. So what we are doing when we bring in out here, we bring in all that power and we do storage. Battery storage and chilled water storage. And then use that when needed. Why chilled water storage? Because 40% of energy is used in cooling. So I can chill the water, keep it, and use it when needed. This is something that we are doing. Again, a difficult project, but we have taken it up and are doing it.
Okay. And in the same line, like a lot of brain drain has happened both in IITs and other things. So,
what brain drain? Some people have gone away. India has large population, 1.4 billion. We don't mind a few million going away. Let them go.
So
I think the brain, as I pointed out, is to be nurtured and develop more and more. Let they go away, great. Hopefully some of them will come back. Hopefully some of them will help us grow faster. For every brain that goes away, we will create 100 brains.
Yeah. So my actual question was, so if so much brain drain happens in IITs or non-IITs, all the top people, but you took the reverse path.
Are they really top people who go away? I think they are taking an easy way out.
Okay. So, but
I think it was at one time because the environment was not right, you had to go and live there. No longer so. Today there is nothing in the West or in US which you don't get here.
Correct.
If you live here through your life, you will save more than what they do.
True.
Challenge here is much more. I think life there is easier.
What made you to come back?
Best will come back. Not so best will stay
there. So what made you to come back when you were there?
It's your own country. I wanted to change this. I wanted to be a part of that change. And I think I did that.
Yes, fantastic.
Even building this research park, creating this atmosphere was a part of it. Somebody has to do it. We realized that programming and English has no relationship. Software development can be done without knowing English.